Hey guys, welcome to a brand new video. Hope you guys are having a great day, by the way. Today we're going to talk about some secrets about JavaScript. They are kind of secrets, but they are kind of known secrets. Some tips and tricks that will hopefully make your experience with JavaScript even more fun. So yeah, that's the goal here. That's what we are going for. But before I even start, if you are a JavaScript developer, and even if you are not, if you're interested in JavaScript, if you want to work with JavaScript in the future, potentially uh, be a JavaScript developer, then this video will be probably be able to ignite some of that interest in you. JavaScript is a very different paradigm, I would say, than if you're coming from any other programming language background. Doesn't matter, C++, C sharp, PHP, whatever you are coming from. It is good to have a clean canvas when you're learning about JavaScript, because it has a stark difference with many of the other programming languages, as you probably know if you're a JavaScript developer. It's not just because it is a loosely typed language where it allows you to declare variables without specifying their type, and you can just change the type on the fly. So you can say something like, var x equals to 1. So JavaScript will assign var the type of an integer or a number, as we call it in JavaScript. But then down the line, you can just say, now I have changed my mind and now x is hello. So then JavaScript is, oh, don't worry about it. It's a string now. So that's something already pretty different than if you are coming from a compiled programming language like Java. But JavaScript is not really a compiled language. It is what we call an interpreted language, right? Originally it was developed to run in the browser. But now then someone brilliant came about and created something called Node.js, which is a JavaScript runtime environment. And now you can run JavaScript anywhere you want. It is now used for building mobile apps, to running on the server, and endless number of things. But it is without a doubt one of the most fun programming languages to work with. So without wasting any more time, let's start talking about some of the interesting things about JavaScript that you might or might not know. Unlike what you might assume, undefined doesn't mean null. In fact, it is a primitive type in JavaScript. It is the default type that JavaScript assigns to any variable that you declare and you do not provide a value. So if you just say var x and leave it at that, then x is now undefined. So you can just go out and do console log x and you get undefined. That's the value that JavaScript assigns any variable, instead of null. We'll talk about null later, but that also is not as straightforward as it might seem. Now, coming back to undefined, you can actually go ahead and change what undefined means in your code. So you can go ahead and say something like undefined equals to I'm not defined as a string. But then it is usually advised and as a best practice to not do that, to not change the value of undefined explicitly in your code. I mean, unless you really have to and you know what you're doing. Simply because, if at any point, if you want to check the value of a variable and it comes out to be undefined, and assuming that you haven't changed what undefined means in your code, then you know for a fact that you have not set the value of this variable. And that can come in handy a lot of times. So you can check if a variable is undefined. Next up on the list is truthy and falsy. This one is really fun. So think about for a second how we use if-else statements. So it's if, and then there's a bracket where we put in an expression which can directly evaluate to true or false, or we can directly pass a Boolean value. So we can declare a variable, give it a value of true or false in Boolean, and then pass that variable for an if-else statement. So that's how usually other programming languages see if else. In JavaScript, you can do a little more than that. So, usually we can just declare a variable called age, set a value, let's say 20, and then we can write an if else statement like, if age is less than 20 or less than 30, then we can say, console.log young, and if else we can say console.log old. But in JavaScript, you can do a little more than that, as you probably already imagine. So in JavaScript, we have this concept of truthy and falsy. So it's not really Boolean, but JavaScript doesn't require you to always pass something, a variable that is Boolean or an expression that is Boolean, because it ultimately needs to convert it to Boolean, but JavaScript handles things a little different. So JavaScript itself can decide whether a value is true or false. So for JavaScript, 0 is false, undefined is false, null is false, and an empty string is false. If you go to your console right now and if you write 0, if 0 equals to an empty string, what you will find is that it's true. It returns true, unlike any other programming language. So for JavaScript, an empty string is double equals to 0. But then if you really want to strictly make sure that the two values are really equal, then you need to use the triple equal to operator in order to do that. So 0 triple equals to an empty string will return false, but double equals to empty string will return true. So that's why you need the triple equal to operator when you need to make sure that the value is what you expect it to be. But for many other cases, in an if else statement, you can pass in an expression that, if you pass in a number, and if that number is greater than 0, then it will be considered to be true. If that number is equals to 0, then it will be considered to be false. You can compare a string with whether it's 0 or it's an empty string, and that will be if you are passing an empty string, that will be considered false, and if you're passing in a string that has any value in it, it will be considered true. So yeah, like you can already see that you don't need to pass only Boolean values into if else statements. You can just pass variables. Once you understand how JavaScript is going to evaluate those expressions or variables, you can then pass those variables directly, depending on whether that variable has a value or not. If it is a number, whether the number is 0 or not, JavaScript will evaluate it to be false or true in that sense. So that is really powerful when you start applying it to your everyday coding practices, because that makes your code, I think, more readable. You do not always need to check if something is null, if something is empty, like we do in Java or C, so that really makes your code much more readable and, to be honest, much more fun to write. And yeah, that's another fun thing about JavaScript. So yeah, I'll wrap this video here, and I hope you learned something new, and yeah, see you on the next one.